Well, tell me a little bit about yourself. Like what's your professional background?
The short version is I'm a serial entrepreneur. I own multiple different businesses, have been in different sorts of revenue streams. I have a background that comes from banking and finance and then management and leadership inside of that as a subfield. So that's where my background comes from. I am just trying to transition from the world of physical assets and physical employees to digital assets and no employees.
Man, that journey, I understand that. So how many people were you like on in charge of before the transition or you started transitioning?
At my peak, I had a company that employed about 117 people.
Wow.
So
And you're trying to pare that down to one.
well, I've actually pared down multiples because, like I said, I own multiple companies. So I've pared down a lot of them over the last couple of years. I've got one left that's got employees. It only has four. So hopefully at the end of this year, I will be at the zero number.
Wow. All right.
Ethically, of course. Everybody's got to have a way to continue to take care of their family.
100%. Absolutely. So for you then, what would you say was your motivation for looking for an additional income stream, passive income?
I like to stay alive. I mean, just because you don't want to have physical assets and physical employees doesn't mean that you don't need income. Money makes the world go around.
What have you tried in the past? Like what else have you like done as far as passive income is concerned?
Everything under the sun. Last February, almost a year ago, I ventured out into the first bid. I programmed the Instagram algorithm to where it only showed me business ideas. I've done real estate stuff. I did something with a tax lien company that worked out. It made all my money back and more on that one. Did Amazon automation, did Etsy, eBay, all those different things to varying levels of success. Airbnb, there's just a number of them that I've done.
Did any of them, so with the Airbnb and kind of the Etsy shops, like how did those turn out?
So with the Airbnb, that's in a different category because I purchased an education course and not an automation program. Within that education course, we had a great group of people together, and I met somebody who was a hustler. I had capital. We've created a great partnership. She does the creative, I do the finance. So that's going very well for us. As far as the Etsy goes, the eBay and the Etsy are under the same deal. They've got some mixed results right now. The eBay is actually selling pretty well. The Etsy's taking a little bit to get off. So that one's profitable, but not in a level that allows me to leave a job. And then as far as, I'm sorry, there was another one's going in there. Did one that was also Shopify. That one's not as successful. It's kind of break even, but it's pretty much become evident to me that you always have to put advertising dollars in to continue to get sales. It's always going to spin its wheels to be just above break even.
It's kind of like most of our clients have had a negative experience with automation opportunities. It sounds like you're one of the rare ones that a couple of them have actually worked for you and are still working for you.
Definitely. A couple of them have worked and are still working. But once again, I set aside a budget of what I was willing to invest and what I was willing to risk. And if worst case scenario, lose to find different options that are going because you don't hit a home run first time that you come up to bat. I was
Yeah.
fortunate that I have had some that have worked out. YouTube worked out. That's one that I didn't mention out. But it's still to a point where even for ones that have worked out, like the YouTube automation, if you want to scale it, it's just so cost prohibitive. You've got to be able to do it yourself. Currency trading is something that in our first talk, I talked with you, I was familiar with, so I knew about it. I just didn't want to be up at 2 in the morning so I could trade the London market.
What's your due diligence process? Because like it sounds like have been a good person of being able to select the right opportunities, ones that are at least going to get you break even. What is that process like for you when you're choosing a company?
The due diligence really depends upon what the buy-in is. So honestly, if something is less than a $15,000 buy-in, there's not really a great advantage in the position. Then there's not a great advantage spending a ton of time in due diligence. You're going to go ahead. You're going to look at a Better Business Bureau. You're going to make sure it's a legitimate entity. You're going to figure out where the rights at. You're going to see if you can figure out where the owners are, something on them, and then see if you can find some other people in it who've done it. And that's pretty much it. For the ones that are bigger bits, I ask to speak to more clientele, have a couple of different meetings to go on. You just don't sign into those. That's anything gets into the 20, 30,000 sort of range, or even some of them are above.
Love it. Well, you've done an excellent job to this point, which is it's great to know that all as well as what you have going on with us, there's still other things that you have that are working, which is what we want for you. How did you ultimately hear about us? Was there like a particular ad or video that like piqued your interest?
Instagram. And the deal is I kept watching your ad probably for about 2 or 3 months and it kept on feeding and feeding and feeding. It's like, we know you watched this ad. We know you watched this ad. I just kept watching it each time. And then I was like, let me see what this guy's got going on. Especially, I think probably the one that hit it was when you were talking about people who had failed automation stuff there, because I had one that was kind of going sour. It hadn't lost me a ton yet, but it wasn't doing anything. I was like, so this guy he's gone around the block a little bit. Let's see what we've got.
How did you feel like just before like joining ATN? Like, were you like skeptical? Were you like a little kind of nervous or whatever?
No, so honestly, the reason why I wasn't skeptical is one, like I said, I've got a good understanding Forex and I know how it works. So I know that the potential was there. I could understand the product. And two, when I spoke with Adrian, and this is not to be taken in a bad way at all, but he obviously is not a sales guy. If you
Yeah.
take some of these calls from these other individuals, the automation places or whatever, you'll get somebody young who's calling you, texting you 18 times, making sure you're on the appointment. They do the high pressure. If you miss your appointment, you can't rebook with us and all that nonsense.
Yeah.
So that it wasn't a salesperson and it was talking about a comprehensive is like, let's make sure it's a good fit, was also something that really helped get into the decision.
Is that a part of like what ultimately made the decision a little bit easier for you of actually joining, or what do you feel like was one of the bigger factors as to why you joined?
Once believing in the methods. Currency exchange, like I said, there's just a ton of money in it. There's a ton of risk involved in it, but the fact that you guys have some managers that were on that to kind of pair that risk and you really focus on capital preservation, said, okay, I'll take a look at this. And then the other part of that was is for the buy-in wasn't huge. And the fact that I'm putting my own capital in a known registered brokerage account and it's not disappearing and getting wired off to somebody, it was a reversible decision at that point. Still, to this day, the only thing that's at risk, yes, I have an investment that's at risk, but the only thing that was risk was the buy-in. And honestly, this first month, we made almost 50% of it back already. So
Yeah,
yeah.
we're definitely going to talk about some of the results that you're getting, but in terms of the setup with Julio, how was that process like getting everything set up?
Yeah, that was super easy. All the technical aspects of it was very easy. The only challenge that we had was actually on my side because my bank tried to say, "Hey, what the heck are you doing sending out all this money? Do you know what you're doing?" And so
Yeah.
that delayed it for about 7 days. But other than that, we were good to go.
And then I know that you've been connecting with Jean as well, who's a little bit more on the technical side of things. So what's been the ongoing communication with him? How has that communication been for you?
First off, Jean's been great.
That support is something that we want all of our clients to feel good with. On your end, you've experienced a few different automation companies. Is there anything that you feel like ultimately makes us a little bit different?
That you're actually automated. I mean, it's just bottom line is that it's actually automated. I mean, every other automation company out there needs babysitting. You still have to manage the partner that's going on. This one, there were several days where I would 11 o'clock Pacific, I'd look at it, go to bed, wake up, boom, stuff happened. It
Mhm.
literally made money while I slept. So okay, that's different. I don't have to check up on it to make sure that it's doing something productive. I just have to watch it to make sure it's performing how I want it to.
How quickly did it actually start to make returns?
For me, it was a little bit delayed, but that was my fault, not your guys' fault. It was
Mm.
delayed because my funds didn't get in until Friday and the market closed on Friday at 2. But Monday, it made money. So technically speaking, the first active day of trading, it made money.
With that, where would you rank ATN compared to the other ventures that you've tried in this same kind of capacity?
For me personally, I'd rank it at the top simply because it does what I want it to do in the way that I need it to do. I think that ATN is definitely going to be targeted towards individuals that have some capital to invest. If you're starting from nothing, then you've got to sweat equity your way through things.
Yeah.
But if you're sitting on some capital, this easily goes straight to the top.
And that's what it's designed for. It's unfortunately it's not for those that are trying to turn 1,000 into $1 million or something like that. That's not how the process works at all, and you can understand that. So, what have some of the returns been like so far, especially compared to like normal things like stocks and real estate? What kind of returns have you seen like this month, for example?
Gosh, that's a big one to quantify. The returns this month have been good. They haven't blown the doors off, and they've not been anything to sell at all. I think that I don't know if you want exact numbers or whatever, but it's floating around. Like I said, I got started at the end of the first week of January, so we're looking at about 3 week span, about 6% over 3 weeks, and that's net. That's net of the share of the everything else. So I think that's pretty good overall. As far as real estate or whatever, the fact of the matter is you can make more on a flip or something in real estate in the amount of time that you're doing it, but there's a lot more risk involved. There's a lot more risk because of the concentration of the market on that one asset and whatever the real estate market around it's doing. So I really don't think it's an apples to apples comparison. So I think that if you like real estate and you think it's fun, you should definitely do it. But you should have something like this when the market goes upside down in the real estate and you need some consistency.
We're just talking about the cash flow aspect of it.
No, cash flow, this is far superior.
I think you mentioned it before, but how passive has ATM been, especially after the onboarding phase?
I think that if you were of a mindset to, it could be 100% passive. I'm a little bit more analytical and let me see it and let me make sure that it works. But that's by choice, not by mandate.
So if you wanted to, you could just check your phone weekly or even monthly, and that's pretty much that.
Pretty much.
So for you, that net 6%, is that like 7,000? Is that so? What has it been as far as like the dollar amount for this month?
Yeah, well, I mean, to test this out, I put in 200 grand. But just to get you a rough up, obviously, I don't have it up in front of me, but I think the total gross that the account did was it did 14.8, 14.9 around there. And then of course the 20% comes off. So there was like 2,900 in fees and I'm left with like 11,800 or 11,900 left over. So it's just under 6% net in less than 3 weeks. That's not too bad. Realistically speaking, if I could get this thing producing about 30 grand a month, I would probably hang up everything else and say deuces.
Yeah,
Yeah.
understood. Or deuces to where? Just everywhere around the world?
To my cell phones. I would not answer the cell phone anymore. I would only work network with my community, help the people that are onto it. But like I said, with all the other businesses that I have and stuff, you've got people that call, you've got solicitors all the time, you got this, you got that, the other. I would shut down all the companies. I'd talk to my wealth manager and I'd be like, listen, how you've been wanting to do that simple or whatever, where we put away $250,000 a year. Here's the money. Make sure I can retire. I'm going to Europe this month. I'll be in Africa next month. I'll be in Asia the month after that. Figure it out.
Love it. I love it. How likely would you be to recommend us?
I'm extremely likely to recommend you guys. In fact, I'd like to right now.
Last question here on your ends. Like, what would you say to somebody like who's a bit skeptical, a bit afraid because they've been burned before? You've obviously had some experiences that were not as perfect, but definitely haven't been burned. But like people that may be a little bit skeptical before potentially joining ATN.
So here's the first thing that I would say is that for anybody who's been burned on something, I'm going to be willing to bet that there were a couple of things that were in common on what they got burned on. First is they had to pay a pretty sizable fee up front. And if they had any additional investments for inventory or whatever, they never got a chance to where they could physically verify or monitor those assets. So that's a huge difference here. Yes, there is a fee up front to be part of this network, but anything that you invest as far as your capital, it is in your brokerage account, in your name. You see it all the time. So if you don't like how things are going after a week or two, pull it out. You
Yeah.
can't do that with any other opportunity. Now, yes, obviously your fee is invested, your fee is sunk, but there's always a risk to play on any opportunity. And if you're on the fence, nobody's going to sit here and be like, "Oh, there's no risk involved." Of course, there's risk involved, but this one's panned out better than any of the rest of them.
Yeah. Love it.